Welcome to the Education Fund Ideas with Impact Innovator Grant Writing Webinar. First, we would like to thank our sponsors. My name is Michelle Singh and I'll be your webinar host for today. I am an Education Fund grant recipient and Miami-Dade County Public Schools employee and have been in those roles since 2005. And I'm happy to be your host for today. If you have questions regarding the Education Fund grant programs, please contact Audrey, who is the Education Fund Program Director. Please make note of these procedures and considerations before getting started with your Innovator Grant application. Approval is required from your school principal. Project funds must be spent during the current school year. Teachers must provide a final expense report, which will be a requirement from the Education Fund. The Education Fund reserves the right to publicize all grant programs. Applicant's name or school should not appear in the text of the grant. Funds cannot be allocated toward personal honorariums for the applicant. Proposals will not be funded for expansion and/or maintenance of previous grants. The Education Fund reserves the right to fund programs that it considers appropriate for one school, but not for another. Here are some general tips for writing a successful grant application from the Education Fund Grant Committee. Write your grants separately and not on the application. Edit it with other readers, then enter the grant information onto the grant application online. Once you begin entering, please finish and hit submit. You cannot go back and make changes once you've hit submit. Please also note that you should write in sentences except for the budget. Please avoid education jargon and do not include standards. Here's how to access the grant application online. Go to the Education Fund website, click on What We Do, select Programs, select Ideas with Impact, and then select Innovator Grant Application. When you click that, the application page opens up, and here you will find tips, recommendations, instructions, guidelines, Audrey's contact information, and then the grant application right below. Complete the entire grant application. Remember to add your text on a Word document outside of the website and then just copy and paste. And once you are complete, you hit send. Now let's get started with your grant application. Think about a teaching unit, lesson, or idea that worked well for you and your students. Consider the following as you're thinking. Was this lesson, unit, or project innovative? Were your students excited? Does it make you proud? Does it make you smile? And did you save student samples? Let's dig a little bit deeper as we're thinking about these wonderful lessons. Why did the lesson, unit, or idea stand out? What activities did students do throughout the project? How did it impact student learning or performance? What was the goal in the beginning and did the outcome match it? What made the project innovative? And did the students use critical thinking skills and creativity? Take a moment to think about your great ideas and share them. As we progress through this webinar today, I would like for you to think about these 3 things when you are writing your grant application. Simplify, clarify, and describe. More specifically, Please note that the grant reviewers are business professionals, which means they are not educators. You should describe in details your examples of your student activities and learning tasks and any information that you add for your grant, because this will help them visualize what the students are doing. Because the judges are not educators, education jargon should be avoided. If you must use education acronyms, for example, SPED or EP or IEP, please clarify what these acronyms mean. Remember, the overall language should be simplified, and you are to write in complete sentences. Now we're going to take a look at the sections of the grant application, and here you will see some tips from the Education Fund Grant Committee, as well as some recommendations and examples. Let's start with the project specifics. Here, you have to come up with a project title, the amount you are requesting, your teaching assignment, the number of students participating, and the level of achievement for these students. When it comes to your project title, be short, creative, and descriptive. Think about whether or not the title grabs your attention. For example, the living mural, the statistics of mass shootings. You can consider these options when creating your title. Be alliterative, use acronyms, and rhyme. How much are you requesting for this grant? The Innovative grant ranges from $400 to $1,000. When it comes to your teaching assignment, please list your subject area and your grade level. When you are writing about the number of students participating, include the total number of students you teach who will participate in the project and any other students in your school who will take part in some aspect of the project. Level of achievement recommendations include using levels based on standardized tests such as the SAT, the FSA, the EOC, because this will show a wide range of your students' achievement, levels 1 to levels 5, for example. You should also include diversity and special needs that your students have. If you have students who have EPs and IEPs, or students who are language learners, include that in your description of the levels of achievement. For the ethnic breakdown of your program and the ethnicity of your school distribution, please consult your school improvement plan. At this time, I'm going to take a pause to give you some time to think about the sections that I've just talked about so you can jot down some notes. Please feel free to pause your screen. Let's talk about the summary of your project. For your project summary, this should be one paragraph, and it should be a description of who, what, why, and how. Here are some tips from the Education Fund Grant Committee. For this section, describe the specific problems the students in the project have. Then describe your project and the items that you need to purchase for this project. Show how the project will help these students solve the learning problems, achieve specific goals, and also be creative. Please note that if this is not an in-class project, explain where and how these students will be present and able to participate and how the project is relevant to class work. Here are some other recommendations for your summary. Think about who are your students? Show who they really are socially, emotionally, and academically. What is the need of your students in accordance to their learning goals, to the curriculum, to the standards, etc.? Why are the resources, materials, supplies required for the students and their learning? How will the project and the requested items meet the learning goals and the outcomes for students? At this time, we'll take a pause for you to think about those questions and take a look at the example and jot your notes down. A part of your project description is to think about why it is innovative. Here are some tips from the Education Fund Grant Committee. Describe how the project is totally new, is a variation on similar ideas, or is adjusted to a new age group. Describe how the project requires hands-on learning and creativity by the students. Here are some recommendations for innovation. Think about if the project motivates students in a new way through hands-on and real-life experiences. Does the project's activities challenge students to use 21st century skills and higher order thinking? Does the project offer an improved way to do or learn something? Does the project have a lively and enriching take on traditional curriculum? Let's pause for you to jot down some notes, and while you're doing that, take a look at these examples. Now let's get into the meat of your application. This is where you describe your project in detail. Think about what need does this project fill? Here are some tips to help you with this section from the Education Fund Grant Committee. Describe the overall project. Focus on one major example and then go in detail. Make it sound so interesting that the judges will want to do it too. When you are looking at the need of your project, here are some recommendations and things to think about. How does this project align with the curriculum, pacing guides, district mandates, and state standards? Think about this. This project is a need because it will prepare students for and fill in the blank. Next, is this project interdisciplinary? Are there opportunities for students to experience other learning outside of the current content? This project is a need because it will prepare students for fill in the blank. Does this project provide authentic real-life learning experiences for students? Are learning activities hands-on? This project is a need because it will expose students to, and you can fill in the blank there. Finally, does the project expose students to skills like the 21st century skills, which they need for college and career readiness? If it does, fill in the blank with this project is a need because it will expose students to the 21st century skills. As you are describing your project, it is very important that you sell your project so that you are standing out. One way to do that is by using rhetorical appeals. You can weave in these elements in your writing. For example, ethos or ethical appeal, you can weave this in by telling stories about what the students, who the students are and their needs, all while discussing the importance of your curriculum. This will help you build credibility with the readers or the judges. In terms of logos or logical appeal, you want to tie in research and what the research says about your topic and state what the students do, what their tasks are. These are facts. These are statistics and data and quotes. These are the things that add logical appeal to your writing. For pathos or emotional appeal, this is where you can sprinkle those charged words and phrases in your description. You can use words and phrases like students deserve or innovate, motivate, inspire, challenge, empower, and crave. These vivid descriptions or this vivid language really pulls on the readers or the judge's heartstrings. And when you're able to use all three appeals throughout your writing, you are really selling your project. In these ethos examples, The teacher tells stories of students in her class, building credibility. It also shows the importance the project has on the students and the need for this project. Feel free to pause to read the examples. In these two logos examples, you can see that the teacher uses a quote to add to her description of what the project is about. In the second example, facts are used about the coding program to describe it. Feel free to pause to read the examples in depth. In these two pathos examples, you'll see that the teacher was selective and strategic in the word choice for their description. For example, words like imprint, high quality, well planned, strategically, fail-proof were used for an improved effect. At this time, feel free to hit pause to jot down any ideas you have about your project description. And remember, try to incorporate the rhetorical appeals. In this section of the application, you are describing the examples of student activities. What do you envision students completing during this project? The tips from the Education Fund Grant Committee states that you should use lots of students will do sentences. You should also show students solving problems and being creative. Here are some recommendations for you when it comes to your student activities. Think about and answer the following questions. What are the tasks students will do each day, week, or month? What skills are students honing while completing the learning tasks? What is the teacher doing or providing to help the students have success? What outside resources or activities are included to amp up the activities? We will take a pause for you to jot down your ideas and view the example on the next slide. Here's an example for you to consider while you're on pause. Now we will talk about your projected timeline. These are the activities that you are describing by month to show that the project is well planned. Here are some tips from the Education Fund Grant Committee. Show how your project fits into the regular studies. Concentrate on this project only and not your entire school year. Please consider these recommendations while developing your timeline. Remember to list the tasks students will do each month in class and at home. Show how the learning tasks students complete tie into the content area or the curriculum. Add any interdisciplinary connections students will be part of during the project and include time for the evaluation or summative assessment in the timeline. Let's take a pause and look at the example while on pause on the next slide. Next, we have the project evaluation. How will you determine if your objectives have been met? Let's take a look at these tips from the Education Fund Grant Committee. Base your evaluation on this project and not the whole school year. This can be a test, but it can also be a demonstration, a performance, a composition, an experiment, a competition, or other creative evaluation. These recommendations can help you as you develop the evaluation part of your grant application. Do the standards align objectives match what is being evaluated? What are the learning activities and are they measurable? Are there multiple forms of assessment, both formative and summative? Are rubrics being used to evaluate the student performance? If you can answer these questions, you are well on your way to developing a strong evaluation section. During this pause, we'll take a look at an example on the next slide, and you can jot down your ideas. Take a look at the evaluation options and the objectives at the bottom to see that they match. The final section in your grant application is your budget. In your budget, you have to please include where you intend to buy your items, your item quantity, and the cost of each item. And you should also specify if anything else is being provided by others, such as parents or the PTA or items that you already have in your classroom. You should also include your total budget and the total amount that you're requesting from the Education Fund. Here are some tips from the Education Fund Grant Committee about the budget section of your grant application. They recommend that you list things in the same order. You make the list easy to read. Please note that judges often look at the budget first. So if the items being requested are part of equipment already available, mention it. And if the items being requested can be used in the future, also mention it. Consider these recommendations when you are developing your budget. It helps if teachers can make use of resources and materials they already have in their schools. Example, include art supplies from the art teacher, online books, etc. Technology costs the most, so consider what resources might already be accessible in your school, such as projectors and digital cameras and the like. And try to select resources and materials that can be used over and over again and with other projects. Show you are going above and beyond for the project by listing all supplies, even if the cost is covered elsewhere, as in parent contributions. At this time, we'll take a pause, and while we're on pause, you will take a look at this example on the next slide. Please note additional details about the budget at the bottom. Here is the scoring rubric that will be used to evaluate your Innovator Grant. The scores are out of 0 to 4, 4 being outstanding. You are being scored on 5 areas: your purpose/objectives of your project, which includes why the grant is needed and how it will affect students. Your program description and activities. This includes your activities being well planned, specific, realistic, and related to the project objectives. Your program evaluation, which is about the plans for evaluating the project in a realistic and measurable way, and if the objectives are significant. Your budget, and your budget should be reasonable and sufficiently detailed. And finally, number 5 is your overall assessment. Does the project meet a special need? Is it an instructional learning experience that motivates and challenges students to learn? As we come to a close, please take a look at these final reminders from the Education Fund. Grants will be funded for new ideas, so bring on those new ideas, teachers. Funding will not be offered for equipment based on needs. For example, an innovator grant asking for a 3D printer will not be approved unless the teacher shows how it will be used in an innovative way. You can't just ask for equipment without it being used within the project in an innovative way. Don't forget that you should try to incorporate those rhetorical appeals as you are writing your grant application. Your grant is being compared to other projects, and your comparison to other projects will be determined by how you sell your project. So use those rhetorical appeals when you write. You should be given access to some examples of winning proposals. Some of the excerpts that you saw during this presentation were actually from those winning proposals. As you review the winning proposals, reflect on them by responding to the following questions. Does a project meet a specific need? Which ones? What impact does a grant have on the students? Are students motivated and challenged during the learning activities? Do the learning activities provide a lively and enriching take on the traditional curriculum? Do the learning activities include hands-on experiences such as simulations and real-life situations? How were the student activities described? Are they well planned, specific, and realistic? Do the objectives and what is being evaluated match? Are the activities measurable? Is the budget feasible? Are the asks reasonable and practical? How so? Use the reflection questions to identify strengths in the winning proposals, and also use the reflection questions as a guide in developing your own proposal. Thank you for joining our webinar. We look forward to receiving your applications. Good luck!